On October 9, 2013, a shocking crime shook Kazakhstan. That fateful night, the BAU restaurant, one of the most luxurious establishments in the capital city of Astana, became the scene of a horrific murder. Located in a prime location directly across from Kazakhstan's government headquarters, BAU Restaurant had long been a favorite destination for the elite. The venue regularly hosted high-ranking officials and prominent business people, with its clientele consisting exclusively of society's most influential figures. That afternoon, tension filled the air at the restaurant when important news arrived. Russian President Putin was in talks with the president of Kazakhstan at a government building just a block away, and there was a high probability that both heads of state would visit the restaurant that evening. Immediately, management decided to close to regular customers to prepare for these special guests. However, unexpectedly on such an important day, a death occurred in one of the restaurant's VIP rooms. As news spread, some even suspected political machinations behind the incident. The victim was Saltanat Nukenova, a 31-year-old woman from a prestigious background. Born into a family with deep political connections and a successful businessman father, Saltanat was the wife of Kuandyk Bishimbayev, Kazakhstan's former Minister of Economy. A woman of such high social standing would suffer unimaginably cruel treatment. At around 8 p.m., when medical personnel arrived at the scene, a heartbreaking sight awaited them. Saltanat lay motionless in a pool of blood, her body bearing horrific injuries. Her once beautiful face was swollen beyond recognition, her body covered in wounds, and she showed no signs of life. Despite the emergency team's desperate attempts at CPR, their efforts proved futile. They were forced to pronounce Saltanat dead at the scene. The forensic report revealed disturbing details: multiple bruises around her ears and cheeks, with her nasal bones completely shattered. Most notably, there was an oval-shaped bruise on her neck, clear evidence of strangulation. But the most horrific finding was the direct cause of death: closed head trauma with intracranial bleeding at twice the lethal threshold. Experts determined that her head had been violently struck at least 10 times. Even more devastating was the discovery that just a month before this tragedy, Saltanat had suffered minor brain hemorrhaging. Her body bore a map of injuries, both old and new intertwined, indicating she had endured physical abuse for an extended period. All evidence pointed to one person, the victim's husband, Kuandyk Bishimbayev, who was present at the restaurant when Saltanat drew her last breath. Police quickly named the former Minister of Economy, once a powerful figure in Kazakhstan's political arena, as their prime suspect. At age 43, Bishimbayev epitomized someone born with a silver spoon. His life had been a path paved with gold that ordinary people could only admire from afar. Born into one of Kazakhstan's most powerful business dynasties, Bishimbayev's father was an influential university president who maintained close ties with the former president. Everything seemed perfectly arranged for his ascent to power and prestige. Graduating high school at just 15, he earned admission to Kazakhstan National University. After completing his undergraduate degree, he furthered his ambitions by pursuing a master's degree at George Washington University in the United States. Armed with his advanced degree, Bishimbayev returned home and began a meteoric rise in politics. His career trajectory shot upward like a rocket. In 2007, at a remarkably young age, he was appointed Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade. Just 2 years later, he advanced further, becoming a presidential assistant. Not stopping there, the following year he was entrusted with the role of Deputy Minister of Economic Development and Trade. His career peaked in May 2016 when Bishimbayev was appointed Minister of National Economy, becoming the youngest minister in Kazakhstan's history. With power firmly in his grasp, Bishimbayev could proudly reflect on his 10-year journey from bank director to head of the nation's economy. However, fate had other plans. It took just 7 months to destroy everything he had built. A $2 million bribery scandal led to a 10-year prison sentence. Yet, thanks to his extensive connections, he served only 18 months before being released. His personal life was equally tumultuous, with 3 marriages, Saltanat being his final wife. A UK-educated woman, Saltanat had initially shown promise in banking. However, fate led her down a different path when she discovered her passion for astrology. Born into wealth and free from financial concerns, she boldly left her stable career to pursue her passion, quickly finding success as an astrology consultant. With her captivating beauty and rare elegance, combined with professional expertise, Saltanat rapidly built a reputation in astrological circles. Her Instagram following quickly exceeded 10,000, and her consultation schedule was consistently full. Those seeking personal meetings had to book at least 2 months in advance. However, as the saying goes, fame comes with its troubles, and Saltanat's success brought its share of complications. Among her clients were many men captivated by her beauty, often using astrological consultations as a pretext for conversation and flirtation. This situation became so uncomfortable that she was forced to implement a strict policy. She would only consult with women or couples, completely refusing private meetings with male clients. In August 2022, a single glance at Saltanat's photo online was enough to enchant Bishimbayev. Rumors circulated that a mysterious prophecy during a fortune-telling session had guided him to Saltanat, a woman supposedly destined for him. Whether by fate or chance, Saltanat's beauty had truly captured the heart of the former minister, compelling him to arrange a meeting under the guise of seeking astrological consultation. As expected, Bishimbayev's request was promptly rejected. However, with his persistent nature and extensive network, he devised a more subtle approach. He enlisted a female friend to act as an intermediary, orchestrating a chance meeting with Saltanat. Under his friend's skillful persuasion, Saltanat finally agreed to meet. From that fateful encounter, their relationship developed at a dizzying pace. Despite being a father of 4 and 10 years her senior, Bishimbayev exuded a rare charm for a man in his 40s. With his youthful appearance suggesting someone barely in his 30s, commanding presence, and eloquent speech, he bore none of the typical signs of middle age. These qualities quickly won Saltanat's heart. On December 16, 2022, after a brief courtship, they held an Islamic wedding ceremony. Though they hadn't legally registered their marriage, they became husband and wife in practice. For love, Saltanat willingly abandoned her flourishing career to devote herself to being a full-time homemaker. Little did she know that behind her husband's seemingly perfect exterior lurked a completely different person. Just 2 weeks into their marriage, Bishimbayev's perfect mask began to slip, revealing his terrifying true nature. In this tragic story, one person played a crucial role in Saltanat's life, her older brother, Aytbek. The siblings shared an exceptionally close bond, especially since Aytbek had witnessed his sister's near-fatal accident in childhood, leading him to be particularly protective of her. On December 31st, 2022, Aytbek accepted an invitation to attend a party at his brother-in-law's mansion. What caught his attention was Saltanat's unusual behavior. Gone was his typically cheerful, optimistic sister, replaced by an anxious woman obsessing over every minute detail of the party decorations and preparations. Initially, Aytbek assumed his sister was just nervous about her first time hosting as the lady of the house, wanting everything to be perfect. However, when Bishimbayev's cousin unexpectedly arrived with a gift, he began to understand the true source of his sister's anxiety. The sudden appearance of the cousin and his wife put Saltanat in an awkward position. According to custom, not giving a New Year's gift would be highly improper. In a moment of quick thinking, she remembered an expensive perfume bottle in her room. She hastily wrapped it and presented it to her cousin-in-law. The recipient's radiant smile seemed to dispel the initial awkwardness. What should have been a perfect resolution turned tragic when Bishimbayev witnessed the scene. His face suddenly darkened like a stormy sky. Without warning, his angry shout echoed through the mansion. "Why did you give away the gift I gave you? You didn't consider my feelings at all?" The outburst instantly shattered the festive atmosphere, causing all guests to turn in shock and discomfort. Bishimbayev's parents and relatives at the party could only stand in astonishment at the incredible scene before them. This childish behavior over a taken toy was completely unbefitting of an adult, let alone a former government official. Yet it happened, exposing a frightening dark side to Bishimbayev's character. In an attempt to salvage the situation, his parents tried to intervene, gently suggesting that this was a minor issue, that a perfume bottle held no special sentimental value. But rather than calming down, these sincere words only drove Bishimbayev into a greater frenzy. He turned on his own parents, hurling bitter words, accusing them of meddling in his private affairs. After Bishimbayev's outburst, the party atmosphere became unbearably tense. Guests awkwardly made excuses to leave early, while family members remained silent, pretending nothing had happened. But the fateful night wasn't over. Just after midnight, Bishimbayev lost control again, in his fury overturning the dining room table. A meticulously prepared New Year's celebration suddenly transformed into a scene of chaos and absurdity. Aitbek, who witnessed everything, felt deeply disturbed by his brother-in-law's unusual behavior. In his memory, Bishimbayev had always been a composed, dignified man. This sudden change filled him with concern for his sister's well-being. However, that night clearly wasn't the right time for confrontation. Despite his heavy heart, when Saltanat repeatedly assured him she would handle everything, Aitbek reluctantly left, carrying with him grave concerns about his sister's fate. In the following days, despite Aitbek's frequent calls to check on her, Saltanat consistently maintained that everything was fine. Her reassurances temporarily eased her brother's worries. However, just 3 months later, a horrifying truth would unfold before his eyes. On March 20th, 2023, Aitbek received a photo from his sister that made his heart stop. In the image, Saltanat's once beautiful face was now disfigured with bruises around her eyes, her face swollen, and most painful of all, her eyes, once full of life, now appeared empty and soulless. Her entire body looked as withered as a dying flower. Though no explanation was given, Aitbek instantly recognized that his sister was a victim of domestic violence. With his heart filled with both pain and rage, he immediately drove to his sister's mansion. But when he arrived, he found only Bishimbayev in the mansion, with no sign of his sister. More infuriating was Bishimbayev's cold, indifferent attitude, claiming he didn't know his wife's whereabouts. This irresponsible response nearly sparked a violent confrontation. However, thinking of his sister's safety, Aitbek had to suppress his anger and end the conflict. Saltanat was safe, having taken refuge at her mother-in-law's house. When Aitbek desperately urged his sister to come home with him and leave Bishimbayev, she hesitated. She claimed she couldn't yet abandon their relationship. "Marriage was my choice," she said. "When you're married, you must work to nurture it. Problems can be solved." She still believed Bishimbayev would change. Faced with his sister's stubbornness, Aitbek left helplessly, his heart heavy with worry. He understood a harsh truth that his sister had yet to realize. In domestic violence, there is never just one time. It becomes a never-ending cycle. Each act of tolerance only encourages more brutal abuse. The victim's silence and forgiveness become pieces in the final tragic puzzle. By September 2013, at a family gathering, Aitbek noticed fresh bruises on his sister's body. When he pressed for answers, Saltanat forced a smile, claiming they were from a massage therapist using too much force. This clumsy lie pierced her brother's heart. He knew the truth behind those wounds, but found himself in an impossible situation. In these circumstances, any confrontation with Bishimbayev would only make things worse for his sister. She might face even more savage beatings as punishment. And as long as Saltanat wasn't ready to leave this toxic marriage, any outside intervention could subject her to more terrifying abuse. The situation escalated beyond domestic violence on October 8th. According to Ida, Saltanat's close friend, that evening she accompanied the couple to a concert. There, Bishimbayev openly disrespected his wife by embracing and even kissing other women's cheeks in front of everyone. This brazen behavior enraged Saltanat, leading to a fierce argument between them. After the concert, Ada bid farewell to the couple as they headed to the BAU restaurant. That was the last time she would see her dear friend alive. The next news she received was the devastating announcement of Saltanat's death. The biggest question on everyone's mind was, what really happened at BAU restaurant that fateful night? During police questioning, Bishimbayev maintained a suspiciously calm demeanor. According to his statement, they had a heated argument during dinner. Saltanat wanted to go to her brother's house, but he persuaded her to stay. They then drank heavily until both were intoxicated. Bishimbayev claimed his wife must have slipped in the bathroom, hitting her head on the toilet, leading to fatal brain hemorrhage. He emphasized that when he regained consciousness and discovered what happened, it was already too late, and his wife's death was purely accidental, having nothing to do with him. With arrogant confidence, Bishimbayev thought he had carefully calculated every detail. BAU restaurant was owned by his cousin, and all surveillance footage had been erased, leaving no trace. In his prideful mind, he believed the police would find no evidence to charge him. If necessary, with his wealth and extensive connections, bribing the jury to escape justice would be no challenge. However, these calculations proved to be naive delusions. Modern technology allowed police to recover all the restaurant's surveillance footage. Moreover, they found 12 videos on Bishimbayev's own phone documenting his brutal torture of his wife. This irrefutable evidence exposed all of Bishimbayev's lies in court, revealing the true nature of a savage murderer. The first surveillance video captured events around 1 a.m. on October 9th. In the dimly lit hallway, Bishimbayev cornered Saltanat against a wall. His right hand held a half-smoked cigarette, while his left hand gripped her face, forcing her to look into his eyes. Though still fully dressed, Saltanat's face showed extreme exhaustion, her eyes attempting to avoid her enraged husband's gaze, but ultimately forced to comply. At 6:56 a.m., the cameras recorded them again. From VIP Room 1, Bishimbayev emerged with a ferocious expression, followed by Saltanat, who wore only a thin black coat loosely draped over her body. Suddenly, like a wild beast losing all control, Bishimbayev turned and attacked Saltanat, knocking her to the floor. Not stopping there, he relentlessly kicked at her with his right foot, ignoring that she lay curled up and defenseless. Still not satisfied, Bishimbayev pulled Saltanat's semi-conscious body up. He pressed her against the wall, gripping her throat, then mercilessly punched her beautiful face. By this point, Saltanat was too weak to stand, but this did not stir any compassion in her husband. For a moment, Bishimbayev seemed to pause, stepping back a few feet. Yet his anger had not subsided. He abruptly turned again and dragged her by the hair into the bathroom once more. Through the keyhole gap, cameras captured Saltanat's last moment of hope. In a split second, she managed to get into the bathroom first, using her remaining strength to lock the door, desperately hoping for a chance to call for help. But this hope was quickly shattered as Bishimbayev kicked the door open. Inside the confined space of the bathroom, a new round of torture began, even more brutal than before. They remained in the bathroom for over 70 minutes, the most horrifying period in Saltanat's life. Though there were no surveillance cameras inside, Bishimbayev himself recorded his crimes on his phone, as if proudly documenting his brutality. The continuous verbal abuse, savage beatings, and degrading acts never ceased. His venomous words cut like sharp knives, inflicting wounds not just on her body but destroying her soul. For 8 endless hours, Saltanat endured both physical and psychological torture. Each passing moment felt like a century for the woman trapped in this living hell. Around 9 a.m., in a semi-conscious state, Saltanat was dragged into VIP Room 1 by Bishimbayev. This was the last time cameras captured her alive. Behind those VIP room doors were the final moments of a beautiful life, destroyed by the cruel hands of the husband she had trusted and loved. This was a long and merciless torture session. As death's shadow gradually crept over Saltanat, what did Bishimbayev do? Instead of seeking help, he carried out a series of bizarre actions. First, he ordered his cousin to delete all surveillance footage from the restaurant. Then he had his cousin walk around with Saltanat's phone to create an illusion that everything was normal. At around 2 p.m., with Saltanat still unconscious, instead of seeking medical help, Bishimbayev made the strange decision to call a psychic. When the psychic advised taking her to a hospital, Bishimbayev flew into a rage, shouting that he refused to do so. The psychic then reluctantly provided a reading, saying there was nothing to worry about, that Saltanat was just sleeping. Reassured by this, Bishimbayev casually left the crime scene to meet a celebrity at the very same BAU restaurant, where his wife lay unconscious. The meal lasted over an hour, as if nothing serious was happening, as if his wife's life meant nothing to him. By 5 p.m., seeing Saltanat still showing no signs of consciousness, Bishimbayev began to panic. He sent his cousin to buy a mixture of carbonate, ammonia, and aromatics, a stimulant that releases ammonia gas to trigger respiratory response in unconscious people. However, ammonia gas can be severely toxic to the human body, potentially lethal if inhaled in large quantities. Despite the dangers, Bishimbayev sprinkled the substance under his wife's nose, but Saltanat remained motionless as a statue. Still refusing to face reality, he continued texting the psychic, seeking meaningless reassurance. Once again, after receiving a positive response, he lulled himself into the delusion that everything was fine. At 7:07 p.m., in another bizarre move, Bishimbayev texted a religious worker asking if they were available. It took over 10 minutes to receive a response. At this point, Bishimbayev's cousin, who had witnessed everything, finally broke down and called for emergency help. But it was too late. Saltanat's fragile life had slipped away during those hours of senseless waiting. Bishimbayev could have saved his wife's life, but his series of bizarre actions cut off her last chance at survival. In doing so, he also buried his own future. This horrific murder occurred at a highly sensitive time and quickly became the focus of attention throughout Kazakhstan. A wave of outrage spread across the country, forcing authorities to take decisive action. President Tokayev personally intervened, issuing special directives requiring the Interior Ministry to closely monitor and supervise every development in the case. Before the trial, an unexpected development occurred when social media users collectively published the personal information of all jury members. This was a deliberate move, like a sword hanging over each juror's head, reminding them of their heavy responsibility. If any juror considered bending the law, they would face the endless fury of the Kazakh people. On May 13, 2014, justice was finally served. The Supreme Court of Kazakhstan sentenced Bishimbayev to 24 years in prison for murder. His accomplice cousin didn't escape justice either, receiving a 4-year sentence for concealing the crime. During the investigation, police discovered a letter in the apartment written by Saltanat in October 2023. Through trembling handwriting, one could understand the ultimate pain of this unfortunate woman when she discovered the cruel truth. False eyelashes, lipstick marks on the marriage bed, and used condoms in the trash. Undeniable evidence of her husband's betrayal. In this painful moment of clarity, Saltanat realized how naive she had been, protecting a false love alone, even enduring brutal beatings for it. When she finally found the courage to decide to leave, it was too late. Cruel fate didn't give her a chance to escape the claws of the demon masquerading as her husband, and the tragedy unfolded in the most painful way possible. Saltanat's death wasn't just a personal tragedy, it became a catalyst for major social change in Kazakhstan. Over 120,000 people signed a petition demanding fundamental legal changes to protect women. Their voices were heard when the government enacted the Saltanat Law against domestic violence, a crucial milestone in Kazakh women's fight for gender equality. Thus, although Saltanat is gone, her legacy lives on through the law bearing her name, continuing to protect other women from the pain she endured. Her death was not in vain, but rather awakened an entire society, promoting positive changes to prevent similar tragedies in the future. And that's the story of today's heartbreaking case. Thank you for watching and see you in the next videos.